What's up guys, this is VinylicPuma, back with another Borderlands 3 video, and today I figured I could go over some tips and tricks that are not only useful for people that are just starting the game, but can also prove to be useful if you plan on doing subsequent playthroughs on new characters. Now before we start, all of the footage and advice I'm going to be giving here is based on my experiences playing Borderlands 3 on normal with the co-opetition option selected. Since the cooperation mode has instance loot and scales to accommodate players of any level, you may find that some of the tips I give here may or may not apply to you. That said, I still think you'll get quite a bit of useful information out of this video, so definitely be sure to stick around. And finally, definitely be sure to smash like on this video, and failing that, let me know what you think about our fourth entry on this list. Do you think it's cool that you can do that if you're returning from previous Borderlands games, or do you have some other thoughts? Definitely let me know in the comments section below. Otherwise, we've got quite a few things to go over here, and to start, let's talk about our first tip, which will attempt to answer the question of which character is the best starting class. Now, you may think it's funny that for this video's original draft that I was going to talk about controller layouts for our first tip. I'm kind of glad I waited to think it over, but if you're curious about what I was going to say, well, if you're a console or controller user, be sure to switch to classic layouts, as these controls are better in my opinion and are more like Borderlands 1, 2, and the pre-sequel. But back to what is actually our first tip, which is going to concern who is the best starting class. To be honest with you guys, I don't know if this is the overall strongest character, and I'll also admit I haven't maxed out every character yet, but if I was going to recommend you start with any character, I would highly recommend Moze. There are a multitude of reasons for this, but I think it really just comes down to the convenience of her action skill, as well as the fact that she has some really good skills for taking on mobs. As far as Iron Bear is concerned, you can use it offensively to deal damage to enemies and defensively to recover your shields if you get in a tight spot. So if you're getting your butt kicked, you can simply enter the mech, and once you get out, your shield will usually be fully restored. As far as skills go, Moze has some really great skills to take advantage of. In particular, some skills like Cloud of Lead, Selfless Vengeance, Stoke the Embers, and Fire in the Skag Den are nice for boosting your incendiary damage, and Cloud of Lead in particular will give your shots a chance to not consume ammo. There's also Phalanx Doctrine, which will boost your shield capacity and gun damage as you get kills, which in practice can be really good with a high capacity shields, as you can get very tanky if you defeat enough enemies fast enough. And there are also some really good skills here that revolve around criticals like experimental munitions, force feedback, and redistribution. When all of this is factored together and works in concert, I think Moze ends up being a fantastic choice for a starting class. I'll admit I'm biased, and you can feel free to discuss or roast me in the comments section below, but as a big fan of the soldier type classes like Roland, Axton, Wilhelm, and Jack from the previous games, Moze is pretty good. So if you're having a hard time picking someone at the start, I would pick Moze. Now this is something you've been able to do in pretty much every Borderlands game that's come out so far, but assuming you want to carry more gear than your backpack space would normally allow, there is a workaround. All you have to do is fill up your backpack with various guns, shields, and other equipable items, and then go ahead and complete a mission that awards an equipable item. Once the mission is complete, the item in question gets forced into your inventory, thus expanding the amount of stuff you can carry. In order to pick up new items off the ground, simply hold down the pickup button, which is usually X or rectangle on your controller, and you'll exchange whatever weapon you have in hand for whatever is on the ground. So if you see a legendary, you can simply swap it with something in your inventory that's less desirable and still maintain your overpacked backpack space. Now, it is worth noting that there are limitations to this. You won't be able to pick up anything that can't be equipped, so I wouldn't recommend you do this if you still want to be able to pick up trinkets, skins, and head customizations that can be picked up as loot. Additionally, you also have to make sure you have enough items that you don't care about of the particular item type you want to pick up in your inventory. What can often happen is you see a really cool shield you might want, but you only have 3 shields in your inventory and you don't want to get rid of any of them. So just be wary of that, and if you plan on doing this, if you can, try to do it at a higher level, because at that point, you'll be able to reset your playthroughs. And at that point, you'll either have plenty of duplicates or just junk items you don't care about that you can just swap for what you see on the ground. In general, though, this is a good tip that carries over from previous Borderlands games, and it's about time we discussed another one, which involves free ammo. As you play Borderlands 3, you can receive free ammo by simply picking up various guns and weapons that drop from enemies. Granted, the loot in question needs to be quote-unquote fresh and has to have dropped from a recently defeated enemy, but as long as that's the case, you can pick that item up to replenish some of your ammo. So in other words, if an enemy you defeat drops a pistol, you can pick that pistol up to get some additional pistol ammo. And the same goes for other weapon types such as rocket launchers and snipers. This said though, and unlike previous games, it doesn't appear you gain ammo equivalent to the quote-unquote fresh gun's magazine size, and instead appears to be a specific number for each weapon type. For example, pistols appear to yield around 10 ammo, SMGs appear to yield around 20 ammo, snipers yield around 6 ammo, and rocket launchers yield around 1 ammo. It's also worth noting that there seems to be some inconsistency between various guns in this game as well. For example, you can pick up Children of the Vault pistols and they won't award any ammo, while you can pick up a Vladov launcher and it will refill your entire ammo pool. So that's something to keep in mind as you play through the game. Even still, and despite this method of getting free ammo not being as amazing as it was in Borderlands 2, this could still be a great way to get ammo should you be near any ammo pickups or if you're strapped for cash. Something else we should discuss that is gear related pertains to class mods. As you may know, there are items that boost certain percentage-based attributes in addition to providing skill point boosts that will enhance your character. The skill boosts in particular are useful since they will make skills that you could normally only allocate 5 points in and potentially enhance that to 6 skill points or more. However, something that's interesting and appears to be unique to Borderlands 3 is that the skill boosts provided by class mods don't necessarily require the player to spec for a particular skill in order to receive the boost. So for example, on Moe's here, you could equip this load-bearing tank gal class mod and receive the benefit to the Sum for the Road skill without necessarily even putting skill points into that particular skill. Now there are numerous benefits to this. After all, you don't necessarily need to invest in an entire skill tree just to get one particular skill that you might want. Additionally, if you do decide to go through the entire skill tree to where you could spec for that skill, you could use the artificial skill point from the class mod to free up a skill point that would normally go into that particular skill, and then just put that skill point somewhere else. If you ask me, it's a neat trick and is useful to know for players coming from previous entries in the series where things just didn't work this way. And again, let me know what you think of this in the comments section below. This brings us to our 5th tip, which is going to involve vehicle parts. While Ellie will give the player challenges to retrieve vehicles as you explore some of the various in-game areas, you may find it's actually superior to take the time to steal in-game vehicles from various enemies that you encounter instead. In fact, you can occasionally get some vehicle parts earlier than you would otherwise be able to via this method. As an example, the Razor Wings for the Outrunner are normally acquired much later on in a playthrough after you leave Pandora. However, you can sometimes get them earlier on Pandora, provided you're willing to drive around and check out some of the Outrunners in Ascension Bluff. I suspect the same thing can be said for other vehicle parts as well, and if you're looking to get some of these particular parts early, then it's a good idea to try and borrow as many in-game vehicles as possible. In the end, whenever you get to a new area, try to steal some of the in-game vehicles you come across and you'll get those hard-to-come-by parts faster. So our next tip involves elements and how water might be the new slag. Though the traditional elements are here and mostly the same as they were in previous games, there are some new mechanics. For example, cryo is good as you can slow down enemies with normal shots, and you can also potentially freeze enemies as well, making them more susceptible to melee and critical damage. As for radiation, it applies a status effect that deals damage to other enemies in close proximity to that irradiated enemy. And should that irradiated enemy go down, it will release an explosion of mist that can also irradiate other enemies. However, there is an effect that you may not know about. If you shoot any element into a puddle, its effects can be greatly enhanced towards many different enemy types. This may be fairly obvious with shock damage, but the effects of fire, corrosive, cryo, and radiation are also enhanced this way and can be super effective against bandits, Maliwan soldiers, Iridians, and oddly vehicles. While puddles aren't everywhere in this game, I would highly recommend you take advantage of them when you see them, as the amount of damage you can deal this way is actually pretty impressive. And if you're curious, this also works in Mayhem 3 mode as well, so if you find you're having trouble dealing some damage, you can always just shoot the water. Just make sure the enemies are in the area of effect, and also make sure you're not in the area of effect, since this can damage you as well. Now, our last 4 tips are all sort of related to one another, but to start, we need to talk about side quests. As you play through the game, you will probably find that you'll occasionally need some additional experience. One great way to get this additional experience is by completing side quests. For your first playthrough, it's not a huge deal if you complete some of these. However, you may not want to complete all of them simply for the fact that all side quests will start to scale to the player's level once you beat the game for the very first time. There are several benefits of waiting to do side quests. The most obvious is that side quests will provide more experience once you're at higher levels. However, probably the biggest reason you're going to want to wait has to do with quest rewards, as these will also properly scale to the player's level too. As an example, you could do the Golden Calves side quest at the earliest opportunity and receive a level 8 or so version of the Golden Touch Shield, or you could wait until level 50 and do it and then receive a level 50 variant with better stats. This can be applied to any quest reward weapons, and for that reason, it makes the most sense to go ahead and wait until you beat the game to do the side quests. I also thought this was important to note, since there are a number of in-game areas that can scale lower than the player's current level as you're playing through the main story in normal mode. One minute you'll be fighting level 30 enemies, and the next you'll be fighting level 26 enemies. You're better off beating the game before doing any of the side quests in these areas, as that way you will again get the best items possible. It's not really a big deal if you do side quests at a lower level, just be aware that everything does eventually scale up. The same thing goes for crew challenges. Just like side quests, you'll have the opportunity to take advantage of various crew-related challenges from the likes of Sir Hammerlock, Ellie, Zero, Claptrap, and Moxie. These challenges involve performing various tasks, such as hunting down and defeating specific enemies for Hammerlock or Zero, finding robot parts for Claptrap, or deactivating Children of the Vault radios for Moxie. There are also the Typhon de Leon challenges given to you by Tannis, though we'll be going over those a little bit more in their own entry. If it's your first playthrough of the game, you can go ahead and complete a few of these. However, I wouldn't complete many more than that, since it appears that all of these challenges can only be completed once per character. Meaning if you do these at level 11, you won't be able to do them again and receive that same level of experience. On top of that, it's worth noting that these challenges will provide the highest experience benefit at a higher level. Meaning, again, you're just better off doing these at maximum level. Again, it's not the end of the world if you complete these, but just know that once you do, you won't be able to do them again at higher levels. This brings us to our 9th tip, which involves Typhon dead drops. Even though these are technically crew challenges, I feel they are worth giving their own section simply because of the loot rewards that are involved. As you might guess, these are best done towards the end of the game where you've likely reached maximum level, and you've also likely unlocked Mayhem mode. Aside from the obvious points about experience points where the rewards are greatest at maximum level, it's worth noting that the Typhon dead drops in particular seem to be a source for really high quality loot. In fact, I've received quite a few legendaries from these chests, and with that in mind, you may find you're better off waiting until the end of the game before you actually open any of these. In fact, I kind of lament the fact that I managed to get myself a level 21 Scourge launcher, only to receive a Quatomizer from the Rampager just after that. So that's something to think about should you decide to open these earlier. With all of this said, if you do decide to open a few of these earlier on for the better loot that they contain, it's not necessarily the end of the world. However, I will say that for my future characters and future playthroughs, I'm going to wait to open these at maximum level. And this is going to bring us to our final tip, which is going to be to start True Vault Hunter mode at maximum level. So this is a tip that's in line with the last 3 we've discussed, but it's still good advice. Not only will many side quests and their quest rewards scale to your current level in True Vault Hunter mode, but many of the main quests will properly scale to your level as well, and since many of the items you can receive from completing main quests are fairly decent, it makes sense to wait until maximum level to start this playthrough. Now, it is worth noting that with True Vault Hunter mode, you can always reset your playthrough at any time, and thus, if you do start it before maximum level, you won't have to worry about not being able to ever get certain mission rewards. With that said, starting True Vault Hunter mode at maximum level initially will save you a lot of time later. After all, it would suck if you played through 40% of the main missions and side quests in True Vault Hunter mode, only to then reach level 50 and then have to do it all over again. In the end, I think you'll agree it's best to wait until maximum level to do a lot of things in Borderlands 3, so just keep that in mind. Otherwise, guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you enjoyed this video, definitely be sure to smash like, click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more Borderlands videos, and as always, and again, thank you all so much for supporting this channel. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.